Well, I lived in Ballymun. I had 4 children and a 1-bedroom flat, and we went in for the draw and we drew the house, and that was it. So we ended up here. Ian was 10 weeks old when we moved in, and very hard, hated it. Didn't know we were out in the wilderness, didn't know where we were. So hated it. And one night Pat came in and I said to him, I'm leaving. And he said, right. I said, definitely, I hate this place. Why are we going to be da 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 da? So I said, come on, right. I said, went to pack the kids up. He said, well, if you're going on your own, because you're not bringing the kids. So that was the end of that. That was decided, and I had to stay because I couldn't go anywhere. Where else would I go? Who would want me in anyway with 4 kids? So that was it. So we went ahead, and the rest is history. We're here now, 5 kids, 7 grandchildren, and I love it. Wouldn't live anywhere else. All my kids want to live here. Yeah, it's the best place ever. It is really the best place ever. The kids were great. We had the best of neighbours. The neighbours were unreal. But then the neighbours were great, but we had the majority of people that were lived in Baldoyle when I moved in were all from Ballymun. So we all knew each other. But we all had small kids. None of us had anything. Well, a few of them had something, but majority of us had nothing. So we went to the beach. The kids played out. The kids played all the time. They never came in. That was all we done. So then we had no facilities for them. So we decided that we'd form a committee. Now, to get a form committee, at the time now, Martha McCarthy and myself, if anything went wrong, to be a collection. And me and her was always the one left to do the collection. And people would say to you, what's the collection for? And say, do you want to give it or do you not want to give it? If you don't want to give it, don't give it. You don't have to know what it's for. We're not collecting for nothing. So that's what we done. But so we decided we'd form the committee so to get somewhere for the kids. So that was the start, and we got the youth club going. So Bobby Ranson, Nicholas Keneally, Rita Rooney, Catherine O'Sullivan and myself, and Noel O'Connor. He was the treasurer. He wouldn't let us spend nothing. We had, every time we went to Grant, you'd have to have a big thing of why you wanted to spend the money. He'd say, oh, no, we wouldn't have that. So we got to youth club, and it was great. And we had the dances for the kids. All the men came. Then the football came. Everything. Then, unfortunately, the youth club was getting used for the badminton, so we sort of had to move out of the youth club because we were only allowed to have it at night time. So I ran, it was like, what did I say what you would call it? It was like a youth club, and it wasn't a youth club. It was a drop-in place for all the kids to come. And you see, because I had Damien, which was the same age as the majority of them came, it was great. Well, I think I might have been an embarrassment to my kids now, a lot, because I was a bit, and anyway, we done that, and it was great, and the kids were all great. We never had any trouble. We never had the police. We never had no one ever done anything. I remember the Stardust, after the Stardust, we had a fire, a drill in the youth club with the fire brigade came, and while we were there, my kitchen went on fire. In the middle of it all, I get the phone. Elaine O'Sullivan arrives down and said, Mrs. Adams, you need to go home. Your kitchen is on fire. We'd all the fire. The brigade came up to my house. But anyway, that was one of the things that happened. But and then the best place to be in Baldoyle, when you think about it, was on New Year's Eve, was Seagrange Drive. It was fabulous. We danced all night. They came from everywhere. It was just a great place. You know, and then we had a fancy dress, we had fancy dresses, it was a great place to live. The kids all loved it for just some unknown reason. We never had any trouble. You know, you hear about, say, oh God, you had all these kids, but all these kids were all great kids, you know, and that was it. They all had great respect for the adults. The adults were the bosses, and that was it. And there was never a question of who do you think you are, or, you know. I remember one time going to Butlins, and a certain party who I met in Lidl, and gave the whole little shop a few weeks ago. No, but last year I think it was. I'm on the queue and little, and next to her the young fella, man, behind me. Hi, Mrs. Adams. And I turned around and I said, here I am, who is he? So anyway, he said, remember the time you threw me into the pool in Butlins? And of course everyone is turning around a little to hear what the story was. So the story was, we had done a summer project, we were in the summer project, and we were getting ready to come home, and all the kids were dressed, and next little ones were messing, and this young fella pushed the young one into the pool, all her clothes on her, and she was screaming. Of course we got her out, and he's standing saying, oh, it was an accident, it was an accident. So I went over to him and I pushed him in the pool, and he fell in the pool, and he said, and I said, oh, was it an accident like that? Because he was sort of pushing her in. I'm telling me, ma, he said. So I said, tell your ma if you want to. So he was from, I won't say where he was from, but he was from wherever he was from. And anyway, and he said, me ma'll be up. So I said, okay. So here, Rita Rooney said, there's going to be killing. You know, you shouldn't have pushed him in the pool. I said, well, too bad. He shouldn't have pushed her in. So the next morning we were in the youth club and we're all sitting there, and next he came in with his ma. And I said, here's trouble. And she came up and said, Irene, he wants to know if he can go on to the trip today because he wasn't booked in. But I thought he was bringing her in but he never told her. So that's the kind of thing we done. The kids done things and you never told on them because you never had to. And anyway, we always had Nicholas Kennedy, whereas he was the police. So he was the boss. No, everyone was afraid of Nicholas Kennedy. Well, it was great respect he had for him. You know what I mean? They'd never question anything he'd say. And he knew everybody. And if we wanted anything done, he knew everybody to get anything done. We had no roofs on our house. So we had to go and we had to pick it everywhere. And then we had to pay for them, which we didn't want to pay, but we ended up, we had to pay for them. So, but we got our roofs in the end. And as you can see, we never looked back. We were never small, I think they called us Jerusalem. You know, anyone say, did you live in them Jerusalem houses? Great people. I just don't know what else I can say really about Baldoyle. All the kids all want. Dylan gives out because he says, why does Ma ever move? He always should want to live here, you know. But that's it. Like really, then we got our church, we got our shops, and we'd no shops. We used to have to walk to Three Guys in Kilbarrack, and you had to go get a pram and walk through the Bayside over that way and walk back. Great friends. Unfortunately, a lot of them are now. A lot of people, I suppose, have passed on, but we just, I suppose, lived to we're here now this long. I would say I'd be one. I moved in at the very start, so I would be one because where we live here on the road, we were the longest living in the estate because nowhere else was built. Maybe I'll just blow my own trumpet and say this. I felt I treated the kids always fairly. I never, I wasn't a real, you can't do this, and I was always willing to go along with all the kids. And I hid a lot of things in my house. A lot of kids slept in my house, and which they did. When there'd be rows on, Miss Adams, can I stay? And it was a phone call away, or you went over and said, "It's all I stay." And you'd wake up in the morning, you never know who was in the back in the room. The three boys slept in the back room, and there was very seldom three boys in the room. There was always feet under the bed or feet out of bed, or you know, always. And yeah, I think I was a person that they would have came to if anyone wanted that done. If anyone wanted that done, I was always one. I would always go along. The U Club, yeah. Well, I think the U Club was one of our best things, really, that I done. I felt that we needed something for the kids because at the end of the day, I mean, even now there is nowhere for the kids to go. unless they're involved with if see, and it's not all kids that go play football. It's not all kids that do sports. Like the majority of kids, there's a lot of kids that do nothing. So we used to go around and you'd be trying to get arts and crafts going, or which I'm passionate about. I like to think that I would have taught nearly everyone in Baldoyle how to knit, and yeah, even you, all the boys. I would have all the boys in. Yeah, I would say that. Hopefully, I made a little bit of impact. I know all the kids. Well, no, the small kids you don't know, but all the kids that would be the same age as my kids all call me Mrs. Adams. No one ever called you Irene. It just was the way at the times. Like, and if you're walking on the street and you meet someone and they say, "Hi, Miss Adams, here I am now. Who are you? Who's your mother?" Or because they're all adults now and they all have their own kids. But I think the U Club now would be my best thing to say that I done, or start me knitting class, or our key fit class. We had a football league. We had a ladies football team, which I broke my leg the first day we played. I was tripped up, and John Reddy, I was barred. I was never allowed to go to any of the matches when Jeff played, because I would kill the referee, because I hated referees. You see, referees and me don't go down well. I think, if you're, because then you'd have Seagrange playing Stopolan, or and the referee might be from Stopolan, so then he wouldn't give the Seagrange kids anything. You know what I mean? So that was just the way we went on. But I was always in trouble when it came to football. But other than that, I think that's all I done. Yeah, well, there is a ladies club in Baldoyle, but to get into it, which I was in it years and years ago, and then we left. But to get into it, someone had to die. So that was your list. That's true, honest to God. Yeah, so you didn't, when the waiting list was that long, so then people started to die and we got into it. So we were in it for a while and then left it. And then I started a different club, a craft club, because the one in the ladies club in Baldoyle played darts and all things like that, and I'm not into that. So I just wanted to do a club with crafts. So we started one in the library. The library gave us the room upstairs for nothing, to say the county council, which we didn't have to pay. And we get it for 2 Wednesdays in a month, for 2.5 hours each morning, and it's great. So we do that. That's the club that we do now. And now I'm doing line dancing in the village. Now I might be 73, but yeah, I like to dance, so we do the line dancing. And we do the crafts. And we've great, I mean, we have a group of girls that knit. So we knit for the Little Lifetime Foundation. So it's a foundation where people have babies and their babies die, and you knit for them to be buried, stuff to be buried, for the babies to be buried in, which is a very worthwhile cause, because people don't think about people having kids that die. Babies that are born have to be buried, which is awful. So, and I have to say, I had loads of coffee mornings in the house for them, and the support from everyone was great. Because it's not a nice thing, but that's what I'm involved in. But so other than that, I do nothing. Forget-me-nots, right. So the Forget-me-nots choir, as you know, is in the village. And one of the girls that's in our club, we do cards, we make cards. She lives in Sutton. Her daughter's involved with it. So we done, you try to make it, how to help. So the way I help is I knit and I give a donation of something. So I made a crib, I knitted a crib and gave it to the foundation for them. And so the word came back that they were going to sell it. So I said, well, see what you get for it. So it turned out then, they said they wouldn't sell it, that they would auction it, because you'd get a few bob. So as far as I know, they got €1,000 for it, because obviously someone that was in the forget-me-nots was going to give the £1,000 anyway. So but they made a lot of money. So the forget-me-nots choir is brilliant. If you can at least, if you give anything, if anyone wants to give anything, donation, they need money all the time. That they do great work. If you go down and sit with forget-me-nots, now all our age especially, we know the songs, and you see. The last time, one of the women she was 90 odd, I can't think of her name, she lives in Holt, and she actually drove me home one time from the club in Holt, and I have to tell you, when we got to Baldoyle, I said to her, tell you what I do, I live here. And she said to me, oh, I'll bring you home. She's American. I said, no, I said, I live here. We went to all the lights, she didn't stop, we got into the car, she said, I'll bring you home, Irene. I said, okay. So I got out of Patters, because I said, I'm not going any further. But she was 90 and she was having a party, and one of the men got up and sang to her at the thing. It was priceless. It was, now talk about crying, you just sob. Listen to the men singing. The men are massive singers. We're going to make these fiddly blankets, they're called. I think they're called a fiddly blanket. Are they called a fidget? Well, I call it fiddly. I would say fiddly. A fiddly blanket. They're called fidget blankets officially. So to give them, because you have to think that, God, Alzheimer's is an awful thing to get. It would be an awful thing to get, but just to sort of give them something that, it seems it's a thing, it's a blanket that they can sit with and maybe connect to something, to give them something to do. So that's my project at the moment. I'm 73 and I know I wasn't allowed out, but the 70s weren't allowed out, but I was 73, so I was allowed out, right? So that's where I looked at. My dog, my poor dog, my dog died in the middle of it, but my dog had to be walked every morning, so every morning I walked. I left here at 10 o'clock and I would get back, saying, I'll tell you where I walked. I walked down the drive and into the park, and I would get back about 2:45. 11 o'clock to 2:45, around the park. You stopped at every house coming up. We drank tea at every house, because everyone was out sitting in their garden, so everyone sat out. You met people you hadn't seen in ages. People were great. Never, I have to say, I wasn't affected. I actually thought it was a lovely time. It was a lovely time because there was no noise. It was just everyone was really friendly. Now you're saying, where's all the people gone? I think they all got back into their cars. Everyone was walking. It was a great time. The only thing now that I can say about it was my dog died in the middle of it, which I'm very upset. He's buried down the back of the garden and all. So very upset about that. But other than that, it never bothered me. And I have to say, I had me 2 girls done me shopping. I wasn't let go. I still haven't been at the shops. I'm not allowed to go to the shops, so I haven't been at the shops. So Dylan does something, or Louise is very good, and so is Catherine, the two of them. Bags and messages. I think I had more things I never thought I'd ever eat was left at the door. Oh, that was horrible. Yeah. How would you say? Well, what I'd say is, hopefully I think, to me, the COVID was there. I mean, it was there because you were and Tony was the best thing ever happened, and I'm glad he's getting made. Tony Houlihan was the best thing ever that ever came on with COVID. I mean, he explained every night. We all sat watching him, and we looked at what he was telling us. To me, the COVID it was horrible, and anyone that had people that died had to have been horrible. Well, we had one death in Seagrange, and he didn't die of the COVID. It was Christy O'Keefe. And it was the best funeral that I've been at in a long time, because they brought him up outside the house, and he lives on the drive. And I'd say there was about 200 people on the drive, the whole drive. His son came out with the guitar and the pipes, and we sat singing on the wall. Sandwiches and tea was around. Christy was in the coffin outside the door. We all sang. It was absolute, and he done his little omni and all on the at the wall. It was. If you were ever to go, you'd go that way. The sun was shining, which helped, but But I think it was a horrible looking at people that couldn't do anything about when they died. Like you couldn't go near them, or thanks for God we hadn't got anything like that. Like I think to really feel about the COVID, bad about it, you'd have to have had someone that died really to know that it was horrible. But it has to, and it's still horrible. It's horrible that people are dying and they've nothing to fix it. Like please God, they will get something to fix it. Will it be in my lifetime? I don't know. Oh God, well I'd like to live forever, of course, that's it, but that's not going to happen. But yeah, I'd like to see that, I'd love to see now the way we used to. See, unfortunately what's happened, and I think this is what's happening in not only in Baldoyle and everywhere, the young people are moving in and they're all working. Where when we all moved in, none of us worked. We all had our kids, and we were always you were able to do things, and you were able to organise things. Now, if you have to organise things, people have to give up work, or they have to do this. So you haven't got the community spirit that you did have. Now, granted, there's loads of people that would like to do it, and I'm sure they will do it. And if they're asked to do it, they would do it. But it would be great for the kids coming in to have the safety of Baldoyle. I think Baldoyle is a safe place to be, and I hope it always stays safe. We just now, even my son comes down with the kids and to play in Baldoyle because they find that it's safe. The parks are safe. There's always someone around that would look after the kids, and hopefully that always goes on. That we always have that, and the kids have great respect. There's no one that wouldn't give you any respect. And I think it's all about that. It's all about kids there. You see the likes of Dylan now, playing. They're playing curbs up the road. Now, curbs is something that our kids played, which is great to see them playing. And I'd love to bring all that, the kids all playing. It's great. I think it's great to see kids playing. But unfortunately, they're all on their iPads, they're all on their phones. And well, I think that's another thing. Phones are good that they have, but yeah, I'd like to see more kids out doing things, but I don't know whether that's the way forward, whether that's the way it's going to be. It's possible it's not, because a lot of kids don't want to go out, and then you see you have bigger ones coming now up. Now I would know the bigger ones now. I don't know any of the small ones. I know all Dylan's age around. That's all now at the minute. So hopefully, I'd like to see us having a nice, settled, peaceful place and loads of work for everybody. That's what we want. We want everyone working, and you want people to use the facilities, use the parks, use the walkways, use the football, use everything. You go over to the park over there and you have the GAN, the football. So you have everything. So you have everything we have everything at our fingertips, which we don't, and we've the tennis court, and we've everything. So I think everyone should use it. It's not for everybody, of course. Everybody doesn't want to, but yeah, I think walking is one of the things and that we all should be doing more of. Yes. Well, I'll tell you one story. Now, this is a great story.
Don't name
Right.
names, though.
Right. So, as you know, Christy Taylor has Santi on his race course, right? And one Christmas, and I went on to 3 Christmases, but the first Christmas, it was robbed off the race course and put on my roof. Right? And a certain party who lived in Baldoyle who was able to scale the race course without a ladder and scale my roof without a ladder and put it on my roof. So Christmas morning I wakes up and people are walking past, you're pulling the curtains, and people are going to Mass. And we always went to midnight Mass, so we weren't going to Mass. And people are passing and waving. And I'm saying, God, everyone's really friendly today. But at the time when Santa was put on my roof, people hadn't got Santas on. Everyone now has Santas on their roofs. But at the time we had flat roofs. So Santa was on my roof. So Christy Taylor came looking for his Santa. Right? So what they decided to do, they said if he gave a donation to something, they'd give him back. Which is what he did. And the Santa was given back. So that went on for 3 years. The Santa was taken off Christy Taylor's roof and put on my roof. I just thought, well, look, I know what, it was the best thing ever. Yeah, it was the talk of Baldoyle now. See the roof on Irene Adams, the Santi on Irene Adams roof. But I mean, it wasn't me that done it, but I knew who done it. Yeah, oh yeah, who will remain nameless, yeah. But he done it, yeah. And I thought it was hilarious. They thought it was hilarious. Of course they did. So every night we had a disco in the U Club. And there was a big thing about, like, they'd have a prince and princess of Baldoyle. And it turned out then that Barbara Tingley won the princess and James Call was the prince. And someone, I don't know who it was, I think Noel O'Connor organised a lorry. And we put them sitting on the lorry with loudspeakers and drove them all around Baldoyle. It was brilliant. And all the kids after, I mean, and they were, of course, they thought it was brilliant. It was like real, and it actually finished that day. I think we had Bonnie Baby contest in the park, and a fancy dress. And then we had all our fancy dresses out of Sea Grange. Now, the best one that ever won that done in the fancy dress was Paddy Beauchamp. You know Paddy Beauchamp, the postman?
Yeah.
Right, he went as Gandhi. When I tell you, he was priceless. He shaved his hair and he had the little glass and he's skinny, right? And he wrapped himself in he was priceless. So he won the night. And I went as Bosco and I won. And the paint was still wet on the bunks when we went down because Irene Bourne's husband was painting it. And then the following year we went as Forever Baldoyle was on that year, But that's what you done, and there was no problem. And the kids and there was no kid. I mean, at night time when you'd be doing this, the kids thought it was great that we were all dressed up. Like, it was all the adults were dressed up. Now, the kids had their own thing, but when the adults won the thing, and then we'd go around Abbey Park and do their remember they had their festival, the Abbey Park have a festival, and then we'd all go around go to a dance around there. They had in the hall around in Stopolan, no, in the park at Stopolan, they had a tent. So we'd go around the big marquee and we'd have the dances there because they'd have their community week up there. And everyone was, it wasn't just for them because everyone was able to go, But you'd love to see something like that. You'd wonder if you'd done anything like that, if you ran anything like that now, how many people would you get to go? People now are too watching what you're doing and watching what you're saying, where we didn't care. We just went and done it. Waldo. Now, Waldo was a character we had in Baldoyle. He lived in McCormick Gardens and he had this Mohican, and I tell you, it was that size, right? And he was one of these, the kids were all to be afraid of him. He was the gentlest, kindest young fella that you ever came across. He came across as real tough and all, but he'd say to me, I put him in charge of the tent, right? In charge of the door. And he'd say no one was allowed in unless they paid, because you'd be trying to sneak in, and he'd be in charge. And I have to say, he was a lovely young fella. Now, he didn't get, he was, I suppose, in trouble a lot and done things, but at the same time, as when we were doing anything, I'd go to him and I'd say, no, I need you now to be in charge. And he had his own little gang. God, Gitsy Campbell now was one of them, and Lord mercy on him, he died last week. And Fran Preston, and all them. And then we took Noel's husband, Louise's Noel's brother, Eddie. They came from down a Mead down, and they were all in the crowd. So they don't mind the tent, but as you say, they'd be sneaking underneath. You weren't allowed to sneak underneath. And it was always in my garden. My car park, my garden was always open to everyone. Like my house, the front door was open, and anyone that needed to come in, came in. You fed, you very seldom, you always had someone for dinner. Someone. I was in charge of hiding the drink. Now when they were, now these were these. Yeah, well I can't tell them because they're all big now. They used to hide drinking because we had like sheds out the front. So they'd be going knacker drinking, right? So to go that, well, that's what they done. Well, so they had to hide it. So they'd be going to a match first, then come back. Now knacker drinking, I mean, what would they have? Bottles of Bulmers. I mean, they didn't, I mean, I knew what was in, and they asked me, Damien would come in and say, it's all right, I'd say, don't know. And so whoever would be back first, would knock on the door and say, is Damo there? No, Damo wasn't here, because Damo was at a match. No, okay. Say like, were you looking for a key? Because the key of the shed. Oh, okay. So I just come in and give the key. That was it. But they would be only either in our park, or they'd be in the race course, or they'd be here. They weren't doing anything wrong. And I mean, it was better to know that they were doing it than them sneaking off. I remember one time, they were all here, and I had a bottle of vodka in the sitting room. I know, and I just saying, I'm not saying it was used, Louise. I don't know who it was, but the bottle of vodka must have been drank and filled up with water, right? So I think it was me. I don't know, God, I don't know who it was. Probably was my sister was here, and of course they decided to have a drink, and because I don't drink, so therefore, well, I would have drank a vodka maybe, I suppose. The vodka is getting, and they're saying this is water they were drinking. So that was the only thing they ever done. That's the only time they ever done anything that they shouldn't have done. Martha, now, I have a friend Martha, and I have to tell you, she has the greatest memory she's from town, right? She lived in Jervis Street. I lived in Church Street. She lived in Jervis Street. And she gives us the great stories. Oh my God. She'll tell you about going to Jervis Street and taking to the dead house in Jervis Street and taking the pennies off the people's eyes. The way you had to put a penny on a pair of the people's eyes to keep their eyes closed. And they'd rob the pennies. But yeah, because that's what they done, you know what I mean? And things, I suppose it's just, and it's gas when we all start talking together. If there's a crowd of us, especially out of Seagrange, because a lot of us do talk together. And you'd start talking and you'd say, oh, God, remember that? And it'd be something that happened when we were kids, when we were young, that we all lived around the north side, all around, between, I lived in Church Street, Breda Mars lived in King Street, Martha lived in Jervis Street, like Catherine O'Sullivan lived down in the flats. So there was people lived all around, and we all done things that we realised we were all maybe all together when we were kids, and we didn't know, and here we are now all these years later, and but you can always be guaranteed, like if you were ever stuck or anything ever happened that you needed the help, there was always someone to do it.